Hello everyone, I'm doing something a little bit different again with this video. I seem to do a lot of these experimental kind of videos where I do something a little bit different from the just the regular Let's Play formula. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but anyway, today I wanted to take a little time to examine a chiptune that many of you probably know if you're into chiptunes at all. I don't know how many of you folks are into chiptunes. I personally really enjoy them. I think they sound quite nice. Some people dislike the sound of them, and it's a matter of personal preference. If you don't like them, then okay, fair enough. But I really like them. And there's a particular chiptune called Unreal Superhero 3, which I think is originally from. It's from some keygen, some crack program for, I don't know, Unreal 3 or whatever. Is there an Unreal 3? I actually don't even know, but anyway, but yeah, the tune is called Unreal Superhero 3 by Kinet and Rez, I believe. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and take a little time just to examine the structure of the arpeggio that drives the whole track. And it's a very simple pattern actually, but it has some nice things about it. It's kind of interesting. So let's take a look. I'm not a musician. I don't have a huge background in music theory, and I'm making this video for people who also don't have a lot of background in music theory. If you are a musician or if you studied music, then there's probably nothing new here for you. I mean, this is just very basic stuff, but this is more for people who are not necessarily very well versed in music, but might just be curious about seeing some of the patterns that go into a tune like that. And if you've never heard the tune in question, I would encourage you to give it a listen because it's really nice. I mean, if you like chiptunes at all, then go ahead and give it a listen. And if you don't like chiptunes, or if you didn't like the track, then I guess this video is not for you. But if you're curious at all, then let's see what we can find out here. So there is a video on YouTube which actually shows the track being played in a tracker, and the tracker, of course, shows you the locations of all the notes in the track. So it shows you the actual, it shows you what notes are being played, which is very useful. So let me go ahead and actually switch here for a second. Let me switch back to. There we go. I've got a notepad window here. So in Notepad here, let me go ahead and type in the first line of notes, or the notes from the first arpeggio pattern that appears in the track. So the notes are, let's see, so it's F5, G sharp 5, C6, F6, G sharp 6, F6, C6, and then G sharp 5. So, let me go ahead and before I comment on this, let me go ahead and go back to the piano keyboard here, and I will play that sequence of notes out. So it starts with an F, so I'll use that F there. So we have F, and then we have G sharp, and then we have C. And then this repeats. So you have these three notes here. You have this, you have this, and you have this. And that pattern then repeats up here. So you have, and you could go up to here and repeat the pattern that way, but you don't. That pattern peaks here. It peaks on this G sharp here. So the pattern goes like this. And then it goes back down. So the whole arpeggio is this. That's the first of four arpeggios that basically forms the repeating pattern that drives the entire track. So what you might notice here is, if you know anything about musical chords, is that this is basically just an F minor chord. That is your F minor chord. And if you've never actually learned I knew what a chord was since I was a kid, but I never actually bothered to learn the formulas or the patterns, if you will, for them. So if you're curious at all, there is a nice site here on Wikiversity called Introduction to Chords. And it will tell you, I mean, it tells you the basic structure of different types of musical chords here. But the basic chords, I mean, the two main chords are the major chord and the minor chord. And what's the difference between the two? Well, structurally, the major chord is formed by taking basically any note, you can pick any note on the piano keyboard, and then play a second note that's 4 half steps up from that note, and then a third note that's 3 half steps up from that one. So if I come back here, if I wanted to play an F major chord, I could start with the F there, and then again, to do a major chord, you start with 4 half steps up from there. So F, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll be this. And then the final note is 3 half steps up from that. So that'll be here. If you don't know what a half step is, it's just a step between any two keys on the keyboard. So like from here to here is 1 half step, and then from here to here is another half step. So here plus 4 brings us to here, and then plus 3 brings us to here. So this, and I think I can play that with my keyboard if I can get my fingers on the right keys. There we go. That's an F major chord. That's it. That is the F major chord. And then to do a minor chord, you swap the 3 and the 4. So to do a major chord, you take 4 half steps and then 3 half steps. To do a minor chord, you take you start by doing 3 half steps, and then after that you go 4 half steps up from there. So again, if we want to do a minor chord now, here's F again. 3 half steps up from that takes us to here. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps takes us to here. And if I play that with the keyboard, and you'll notice, obviously the tone of the major chord is, I mean, this is one way that usually people who don't play music or who haven't studied music, they just characterize the two by saying, well, the major chord sounds kind of bright and happy and, cheerful and hopeful. And the minor chord sounds kind of sad and mournful, like something that you'd play in a sad song. It's a very simple change, just 1 half step. That 1 half step in the middle really changes the whole tone, the whole feel of the chord. It turns it from happy to unhappy. It's actually quite surprising what a huge change in the tone that 1 half step in the middle makes. But anyway, so the first line of the arpeggio appears to be based on an F minor chord, and it builds an arpeggio out of that. But let's go ahead and move on. So I will come back to Notepad here, and I'll write out the second line. So the second line of notes then is G sharp 5, C6, D sharp 6, G sharp 6, C7, right, and then it peaks at C7. So C7 is where it peaks, and then it goes back down. So it goes back down to G sharp 6, D sharp 6, and C6. And again, let me come back to the piano now, and I will play what I just wrote. So what do we have here? We have, right, so G sharp. So we still got this G sharp here. And then a C, and then a D sharp, and then right. So so that's the chord formation. So you have this, and you have this. Notice what happened here. This to this is 4 half steps, and then this to that is 3 half steps. So it actually looks like, it really looks like it suddenly changed to a major scale. It really looks like, so we started with an F minor chord, and it looks like all of a sudden, right in the middle, we suddenly switched to a G sharp major chord, which is an interesting change. It's kind of, what we're seeing here is kind of an inversion of the first arpeggio, actually, because an inversion of an arpeggio is basically when you play a different note to start. You can actually create all kinds of different mix-up. You can mix up arpeggios. They don't have to start with a specific note. You can kind of mix them up by starting on a different note within the middle of the arpeggio and getting kind of different effects like that. So, for example, I mean, you could, if we go back to the first line in the song, we could start it with a G5, and then so yeah, you can do stuff like that, but yeah, that's kind of inversion of the first arpeggio. But here it does something a little bit different because it suddenly converts to a major scale. And that is, it's quite striking. It changes the tone of the music very suddenly. Because again, remember I said that the difference between a major and a minor scale is quite significant. It really changes the tone. And when they do this now, they suddenly, in the middle of the track, they suddenly switch from a minor scale arpeggio to a major scale one. It's striking. It really changes the tone of the music. One example where you can hear this fairly clearly is in Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, which I think the proper title of it is the Piano Sonata number 14 in C sharp minor, opus 27 number 2, but most people just call it the Moonlight Sonata. Many of you who watch my channel may know it as that music from Return to Castle Wolfenstein, from that one level in Return to Castle Wolfenstein where all the Nazi generals are listening to Für Elise and yeah, the Moonlight Sonata. But I'm going to play a very simple, I'm going to play the actual notes from the Moonlight Sonata, but I'll play a very simple chord here. That's C major, and this is C minor. And if I go back and forth and keep playing that, you notice it creates an effect similar to the Moonlight Sonata. See, doesn't that sound kind of like the Moonlight Sonata? Like you have that same repeating sort of triad of notes, but it changes slightly because Beethoven, shifts one note and he kind of switches in and out of major and minor scales, and it kind of makes it more, it makes the transitions very striking because they're small transitions and yet they have a big effect on the tone of the music as it goes along. So yeah, so it's kind of the same scale. What we have here is kind of the same scale as in the first arpeggio, but whereas first we had F, G sharp, and C, now we have G sharp, C, and D sharp. As you can see here, yes. Now we have G sharp, C, and D sharp. What we actually have here is the what we're seeing here in this line, it's actually the A flat major scale. Usually people call it A flat, because I mean, hold on, let me switch back to Notepad, sorry. Yeah, here we go. So here we are at Notepad again. So yeah, the notes we have are G sharp, C, and D sharp. And this is basically the A flat major scale. People don't usually call it G sharp, they call it A flat. G sharp and A flat are the same thing. So let me go ahead and let me change that here. So I'll change G sharp to A flat, and then D sharp is actually E flat. G sharp is again A flat, and again G sharp, A flat, and here we have again E flat, right? So yeah, I think that should be right, isn't it? I think that's correct. I'm just looking at the keyboard, trying to make sure that I didn't mess this up, but I'm pretty sure I got it right. So yeah, so we've got yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure this is what I just played. So that's the second line there. It makes a transition to a major scale. But now let me go ahead and type out the third line. So in the tracker, it shows up like this. It shows up as A sharp 5, D6, F6, and then it continues with A sharp again, and then it ends on D7, and then it goes in the other direction, does A sharp 6, F6, and D6. Let me yeah, okay, I'll make this B flat. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but more properly, I think this is B flat and not A sharp. Okay, so let me go ahead and play this now on the piano keyboard again. So we'll come back here, and now get a load of the effect that this creates here. So what we have here is. No, sorry, not that. So there you go. That's the third pattern that appears. And here's the big shocker. The reason why this part contrasts so well and really sets itself off from the first two lines so well is because what we actually thought was A flat. I mean, those of you with musical training might have thought that this was the A flat major scale, and then here is the shock of a lifetime. It actually turns out it's the E flat scale. These notes are actually based on the E flat scale, I think. So it's basically it's really just picking different arpeggios based on chords from the scale. You're basically just taking different. What ties these together? I mean, the question that I really had when I was listening to this chiptune and I was looking at these notes and trying to think what ties these notes together. Well, what really ties these notes together is they're all pretty much from the same scale. As you know, if you have musical training, a piece of music is usually in a certain key. And the key here is E flat. So these arpeggios are all taken from the same scale, and it's really just somebody just picked notes from the scale that that went well together and made chords out of them, and then built arpeggios out of those chords. So that's basically what we have here. So we have. Go back to Notepad. Yeah, these three are just three different arpeggios built out of essentially the same scale, the same musical scale. And then the last line, the last line kind of it's very simple. Like it's strikingly simple. It's only two notes. So I'll write it out. It's F5. It's F and C. And that's it. There's really nothing else to it. It's just it just continues in this pattern. C7, then it ends on F7. That's where it ends. So the whole structure kind of bases itself on F5. You can see it keeps returning to F5 here. And then the last line, it makes the biggest jump of all. It jumps all the way from F5 to F7, or it climbs. It makes the biggest climb of all. It climbs all the way from F5 to F7. And that's why that this last line here, even though it's very simple, it's such a simple line, it really just, I mean, the third line is the one that blows your head off because you realize that it's in a different scale from the one you thought it was. And then the fourth line is, it just like blows the roof off your house because it's so simple, and yet it sounds so great because it just, it concludes everything in a pretty effective way. I mean, it's really just skipping octaves. It's really just two notes, and it just skips those two notes up a couple of octaves, and that's it. But it's so effective. So yeah, so that last line is this. There you go. So that's that. Yeah, I mean, it's C and F go together. I mean, you know, it's not an arpeggio. Two notes isn't an arpeggio. I don't think that counts as an arpeggio. But it's just a simple two-note harmony to round things out. You know, not all melodies are made of arpeggios. Although arpeggios are very extensively used in chiptunes, they tend to be the foundation of these kinds of backing melodies that do go into chiptunes. But anyway, that's pretty much it for now. I mean, I did originally have the idea of going into a more detailed analysis of the song and showing how the different parts fit together, but this is the foundation of Unreal Superhero 3. This what I've shown here. This is really the basis of the track. And I just realized I've been on Notepad this entire time, so you didn't see the piano while I was playing the last lines. Hold on, let me quickly go back to the piano, and I'll play that last line again so you can see it. So yeah, it looks like that. I'll play it again. Okay, I think that's enough. It's pretty simple. Pretty much anyone can do that. So yeah, there you go. That is that. I think I'll leave it at that for now. This is already taken 22 minutes. Wow. I mean, time really goes by when I start talking, and I really have just explained the very basic things, just like really the very basic structure of this melody, and this is what sets off the rest of the song. The rest of the song just plays on this set of arpeggios and on on melodies that kind of accentuate the pattern that this creates. So yeah, if anybody wants to see more, if anybody's curious about more of this kind of stuff about showing melodies that go into chiptunes, I'd be interested in doing a bit more because I do love chiptunes, and I do love the melodies that go into them. A lot of people think that it just sounds like noise, but no, it's really the tune is wonderful. And in fact, there are a couple of YouTube videos that instrumentalize this track, so not playing it with chiptune wave sounds, but playing it with, or synth sounds, but playing it with actual musical instrument sounds like pianos or trumpets or violins or whatever. So I mean, this is really, it's wonderful music. To me, it sounds great. And if you don't like the sound of chiptunes, then again, you can instrumentalize it. You can take the melody and put it to use real music, put it to real instruments, use real instruments to make the melodies. But yeah, I like it very much. I'm very happy about chiptunes like this. So anyway, so yeah, this was just a simple video about me talking about some stuffs and things. I hope that it was interesting to at least some of you. I hope that at least some of you enjoyed it. I would be interested in hearing your folks' feedback on what you think. And yeah, perhaps there'll be more music videos like this in the future. Anyway, I am done for now, so I will take off, and I will say ta-ta, everyone, until next time.